before we get started, what's next? We had nearly fell into World War III. We have a global pandemic, murder hornet, race wars.
Apparently, GMO mosquitoes.
Well, that's been, yes, GMO mosquitoes. It's going to start coming out. The government has illnesses. Anyway, I'm drinking beer at 12:15 a.m. on a Monday.
Welcome to My Ovaries Made Me Do It. We are starting a podcast. I'm Meg, that's Dee, and this week we are talking about being single at 30 and our expectations versus the actual reality of it. So today we're going to start out talking about TV shows and movies that we grew up watching and how they kind of gave us this idea of how growing up would be, and now after living it, how vastly different it is. So do you have anything in mind, Deanna, to start us off with that you're thinking of off the top of your head?
That false reality that we were given
Yeah.
off of TV shows. Yeah, they don't go into like the true worries that we actually have. Like television, they don't, like, occasionally they'll have a character that struggles financially or within their career, but somehow it's always okay, and you never actually see the consequences of certain situations of that matter. Like not actually being able to afford rent and having to move, or choosing to settle for something and not just like a job somewhat for a little bit of period of time, but actually giving up on a movie star or being a singer or something of that nature. That's something that is never really represented in television. It's more the struggle and like, oh, they make it in the end. Everything always works out, and like life doesn't work out the way that you planned it to. And that's something I was like really shocked about. I always just thought it would work out the way that I wanted it to, and the reality is that that's a lot of focus and dedication and discipline. I definitely do not think that television depicts the amount of discipline that people need to truly accomplish things in life.
I do agree with what you said. Like it takes a lot of work and dedication to get to those accomplishments. And I mean, obviously we know that any kind of TV show or movie is not going to be exciting if they put in all that real world work and time that it takes and showing the amount of people that actually fail at it. Like that wouldn't be entertaining. So I get why. I just think you still have an idea of when you're, a teenager, like, oh, I get that it's, inflated or, Hollywood, but at the same time, I don't think I got the idea or the sense that it was going to be as hard as it is. Like you said, putting in that kind of dedication, like they really did make it seem very easy. And even just teachers talking to us, telling us like, well, you'll go to school and then you'll graduate and then you'll get a job and like, it'll be great. And then graduated in a recession and like, it was not great. You graduated and you couldn't find a job. Or if you went on a job interview, it would be, do you have 2 years experience for an entry level job? And also we're going to pay you nothing. Like,
or like you can't just have a bachelor's, you need to also have a master's. And it's just like, well, I can't afford to get a master's unless I can get a job. And you're telling me like I'm overeducated for these jobs here and I'm undereducated for the job that I thought I got a degree in and was completely educated for. Like I don't have the experience, and yet it's a lot more difficult than people let it out to be. And it definitely doesn't follow the timeline either that people, or like the expectation that I had growing up, of you go to college, you get a job, you find someone at some point, get married, you have a kids, yada, yada, yada. And if you diverge from that in any way, it's not acceptable, or it's not wrong, or it's wrong. Like I didn't want to go to college right away. I really wanted to go into the Peace Corps. And my parents were just like, that's not going to happen. You'll be cut off. We're not going to help, like type of things to sort of like to push me in the direction that they believed I needed to go into, because my mom really believed that she didn't, neither one of my parents completed their college education. And so they really thought that that was the only way to have a successful career and job, was to get that college education, get that college degree. And they pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And then I graduated in a recession. I was suddenly massively in debt too, right? No one explained student loans to me. There was a lot of, and my situation was a little different. Well, not different. A lot of people kind of got taken advantage of, and my college, has been sued multiple times. It is a big court case about getting a lot of these loans taken away. I can't term right now, but taken away because they defrauded the students, right? We were clearly defrauded and put into all of this extra debt. And that was not, I expected that. I never expected to graduate college with so much debt that a house suddenly is just like not even on my radar anymore. Like I had any job and every job that I could to be able to eat, to have the loan companies tell me that they didn't care that I didn't make the amount of, like, I literally didn't make in the entire month the amount of money that I needed to pay one student loan payment. They did not care. And it was just like, well, you got to figure it out. And I'm like,
Yeah. I was really
I
surprised.
was told I was not going to have an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been nothing but issues.
Yeah, I've been really surprised to see like how unwilling they are to work with you, because like you said, you go to school and nobody explains like how expensive it's going to be. Because I remember looking at schools and them being like, okay, well, it's going to be, 40 something thousand a semester, which was my choice. I chose to go to that school. I fully knew that. But I was thinking, well, when I graduate, I'll get a job that pays around that amount. So like, it'll be very easy to just like pay it back. Not semester, year. That would be crazy expensive. Sorry, 40,000 a year. And I remember thinking like, oh, in the grand scheme, 4 years of that, like it's a lot, but I'll be able to pay it back. It won't be that bad. And then, once you graduate and you're having the hard time finding the job, or you're finding that, like you said, you're not qualified when you thought you would be, kind of stuff. Having to pay that back. We're now 13 years out and I'm still making payments on those things. And I remember when I was trying to switch jobs and move states, I kind of called my loan company and I was on time with my payments all the time. Like I was doing really well with what I, was working with, and they were so unwilling to work with me when I was transferring states. And I was like, listen, I'm not gonna be able to like make these payments. Can we kind of change the payment stuff around for a little bit until I like get settled in the next state? And they were so unwilling to work, with that. And I know there's people that have other, harder issues, but it was frustrating to see. And it's stuff that you're not prepared for, because in high school, I don't think, at least in our high school, they don't really teach you like budgeting and interest and loans and all this stuff, and kind of how to navigate all that.
And the weight of it. I mean, I literally had to default in order to get other options on my loans to work within the budget that I had. And then the weight of those student loans, like the weight of being in debt held me back in so many ways, because I was like, well, I can't do this because of that. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't travel. I can't choose the jobs that I'm passionate about. I have the jobs that are going to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. And I felt, like for a long time, like marriage was off the table, because like, how can I marry someone when I have this much debt? I don't look or think about buying a house. Like, I'm just like, no, it's not on my radar because I have this debt. I can't travel because I have this debt. I am a lesser person because I have this. And it was a literal weight. And I mean a heavy weight, holding my shoulders down, holding my spirit down. And that took years before I got to a point where I was just like, it's fucking money. I'm not going to let this hold me back. And the fact that I owe it, like, that's a lot of it. Like, I just have to let that go and not let it deter me really living my life. And I never expected that, at all. I went in with the expectations that things would work out. You know, I knew I did not want to go to a school. I wanted to go to a state school because I didn't want to have any debt.
Mm-hmm.
But my family life didn't work out that way. And so I did leave the state and I went to a more expensive school, and choosing something that I wouldn't have to go back to my family in the summers and stuff because that was no longer an option. So I chose a year round that was more expensive and was given and had the expectations that my parents would help me. And I just expected that. But then a sibling had a health issue and all the money went there. So it was suddenly just like, oh my gosh. So they were able to pay for one sibling's college. They're able to pay for another sibling's health issues. Here I am now in debt because I had to choose a school where I could be housed year round. So I had to choose something away from where I lived. Holy crap. You know, I never expected that other stuff would pop up in life because, yeah, they don't teach you that. They don't teach you in high school to plan for the unplanned and to realize that things like money can disappear just like that, that people can promise you help or but you cannot actually rely on anything that you don't physically have in your own hands already. And I never expected that debt to weigh me down as much as it did. And the choices that I made to have a long lasting impact on my life, because it took nearly 10 years after high school, you know, for me to just be like, I can no longer let this student loan stop me from living. I cannot keep doing only that which allows me to get by and to pay back these loans. I'm sorry, but like, F you, Sally Mae. Like, I lived for Sally Mae. I wasn't living for Deanna. It was so difficult. It kept me in so many terrible situations that was so unexpected to me.
Yeah. And I think
You know,
I just remember talking to somebody after I had graduated, and it's definitely like a heavy mental thing that, like you said, you feel like, how am I ever going to get through this? How it's going to be here forever.
mhm.
And you know, now that I've done it for many years, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And like, it took me years to finally reach the point of like, yeah, I'm going to have to pay this, but also I'm going to live my life. And I can find ways to make it work. It's just about figuring out what's important to me, and like traveling was important to me, you know, moving out of state was important to me. And so finding ways to work it. And yeah, you're having to sacrifice in some areas, you know, but I think once you get out of that mental fog of like, oh my God, how am I ever going to do this? And then you start kind of realizing, well, it's here, it's not going away. Like, I'm going to get it done. And then moving through that, I think that's where I definitely got in a better place. Because my first few years, I just, like you said, I got a job, and it was a job. You know, it wasn't anything I was passionate about. It was just a job to pay the bills, which people have to do. I totally get that. But I just remember being there for like my 5th year, and I just was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. This is not what I can do. And some people luck out and they find a job where they're okay enough at that they're like, yeah, I can. It's fine. I don't love it, but it's something I can do. I reached the point of, this is not fine. I am miserable. How can I change it? And I think that was the start of my whole mindset changing and realizing like, no, there are ways to change it. And like, there are other avenues. But it's definitely not what I expected when I, you know, was in high school or even graduating college.
At all. I mean, when I went for my college interview, one of the things that they asked me, they're like, well, what do you expect to make in 1 year? And I just like came up with some random number because I didn't even know. I had no idea what somebody needed to make in a year to live comfortably.
And I want to point this out that nowadays kids, I think, have a little more access and more education through the internet, through YouTube, there's a lot more ways to find information. And when we were younger, yes, there were ways, but I just don't think they were as prevalent, or that I personally was as aware. I was the first one in my house to like graduate and go through all of that because I'm the oldest, and I just wasn't aware of all the resources, and they were not as easily accessible as they are today, you know?
Oh, at all. I mean, college was the first time I had a computer. I got that for my like high school education was a computer, and that's yeah, people it wasn't smartphones. It was Zach Morris phones back then. It was like big bricks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. The no-tel. My dad he got us the no-tel phone, and he would just walkie-talkie us. So I'd be at work after school and he would walkie-talkie on it. Megster, and I would be mortified.
Same thing. Oh my gosh. And they do have more access to that now information, but yeah, me too. Like I do have an older sibling, but she went to a county school, and although I didn't want to go to the county school, I did want to go to state school.
How kids have access now, and which is amazing. Like, I'm happy that they have access. I just wish that I had either A, had that kind of access, or B, had been more proactive about it, because that's on me too. I wasn't proactive, but there was no real push from what I remember. It was just like, oh yeah, I'll like figure out a school and I'll go there. Like I didn't know enough to
Well,
be informed. I
it
don't.
was so expected. Like it was college after high school.
Yeah.
On my guidance counselor, which I only saw ever in my senior year or
I saw my
whatever.
guidance counselor once.
Yeah, it was only about what colleges are you applying to,
Mhm.
what's on your
Yep.
your transcript, your resume, whatever the hell they call it. I wanted to go into the Peace Corps, and that was just like, no, that's not what you do. You'll never go to college if you take a break. And now it's super acceptable. A lot more people push for that year in between that break, and I really wish I had, because I would have made many such different decisions.
Yeah.
And within a month of starting college, and I moved across the country, and I moved to a really beautiful city for a really amazing trade school. But within a month of being there, I called my mom and I was just like, I made a mistake. This is the wrong college for. It's very specific. I didn't have the option of studying a lot of things. I was studying photography. And I want to come back. I was like, I made a mistake. This is not the right school. This was not the right choice, which I knew, but I didn't have, and that's not on anybody else but me, and my journey is not pushing more to do the things that, like, I knew I wasn't going to school right away. But my mom wouldn't hear it. It was just like, everybody who goes off to college gets homesick and wants to come back and like thinks that you have to stay a year, and then after that we can revisit it. But my school wasn't a typical college, and it wasn't easy to transfer things. It was an art college. It was sort of vocational specific, and at that point I was so in debt, right? So it was that expectation placed on me of like, no, you don't know what you want. Everyone feels that way. You stay in school. That's what you are supposed to do. That is the only way to success. And to this day, I really feel like college was one of the mistakes of my life, because it has done nothing but put debt on me and has not actually helped me in any way. Having a bachelor's degree, it's just been like, great. Why don't you have a master's? Why don't you have a doctorate? Why don't you have a PhD? Why don't you have 2 bachelors, 2
Yeah.
masters? And it's just like, I'm in debt. That's why. If college was free, well, then I'd probably have more education. Now, wouldn't I? But that expectation of college is the way, and college is the only way. And that's not true. And it was never true.
Yeah. I mean, I don't resent the fact that I went to the school I did or anything. I think I made a good choice, but I do wish I had more, I wish I had the mind that I have now, because I would have, I think, spoken back a little more when I was at that age, and had a little more hindsight and forethought and whatnot, and maybe not gone to the college that I did at that time. I might have chosen to go to the county college and just do 2 years and then go on to because all that matters is where you actually graduate from. That's when your name gets put on the diploma. So rethinking things, I kind of wish I would have done that. I also wish I would have pushed back on my parents, because at the time they had told me, like, you can't leave and go out of state. You have to go to, a school within the state. But they weren't paying. I was paying. And I didn't push back. I didn't say anything. I should have been like, no, I'm taking on the loans for this. I'm making the choice for this. I can choose wherever I want to go. But I didn't do that. So it is what it is. And I am grateful for the education that I have. I just, having the mindset and information that I have now, I would have done it differently.
Agreed. I think if I had anybody in my life that had supported me wanting to not go to college, I would have not gone. I would have been very, like, I really, and learning now about the Peace Corps and what I learned a little bit further down when I was in my early 20s as opposed to right out of high school, I was grateful I didn't go into the Peace Corps. But I mean, like, I do feel like college was a mistake. Moving out of the house and moving across the country, I mean, coast to coast, that was fantastic. And that brought a lot of growth in my life. But college in itself and choosing that college has bogged me down, because now, exactly, here I am 15 years later, or 10 years of college, still paying off that college debt.
You look
I
beautiful.
don't remember where I was when I froze.
Girl, I don't remember either.